Okay, imaginary numbers, so-called. Talking about imaginary numbers, I prefer to call them transitional or transactional numbers. Because they deal with things which are in motion or change of some kind, which accounts for pretty much everything in the whole universe. Nothing stands still, does it? Even things in the universe that look as though they're standing still are not really standing still, because an acorn becomes an oak tree, and an oak tree might eventually become a table in your living room. It's the same thing. There's the oak table, the oak tree, the acorn. It's in the fourth dimension, and in the entropy of time's direction. It's the same bit of matter and energy going through transitions and change. Yeah? So pretty much absolutely everything in the whole universe is in a state of transition and change of one kind or another, whether it looks like it is or not. And so, example. As an example, a man goes into a baker's shop, wants to buy a loaf of bread. The baker gives him a loaf of bread. The man gives the baker the price, say £1. It's a cheap loaf of bread, £1. So, is that plus or minus? It's minus £1 from the man's pocket, plus £1 to the baker's shop. It's the same pound, but it's minus from the man and plus to the baker. The loaf of bread, is that plus or minus? It's minus one loaf of bread from the bakery, but it's plus one loaf of bread to the man. Same loaf of bread, but it's plus and minus at the same time, because it's in motion, it's in transaction, it's going from one to the other. So it's minus seen from one end of the transaction and plus seen from the other end of the transaction. That's semantics, not mathematics. That's language. A man gets on an aeroplane from New York to Los Angeles. Is the man plus or minus? He's minus one man from New York, but he's plus one man to Los Angeles. It's the same man, but he's plus and minus at the same time because he's on a journey. Things are in a state of change and journeying from one place to another, from one type of thing to another, from one state of matter and energy, which is the same thing, but in different states. It's all in transition, you see. So, how can we understand plus and minus in mathematics if everything's in transition? Well, we take into account that we're looking at it from one end or the other, That's the way it is. What they call imaginary numbers, they're looking at it from both ends at the same time. It's both plus and minus. A man decides to build a sports room, a gymnasium, and he decides to make the walls of the gymnasium be 10 metres long and 10 metres wide, 10 metres square. So the floor space measures 100 square metres. But on the blueprint, he draws in a little square in the corner. He wants there to be an equipment cupboard measuring 1 metre by 1 metre. So, when he builds that, it's minus 1 metre from the total floor space to make the equipment cupboard, but it's plus 1 metre of equipment cupboard. So the equipment cupboard measures 1 square metre of equipment cupboard space, which is also at the same time minus 1 square metre of total floor space of the gymnasium. It's the same bit of floor space, it's the same square metre, but it's plus and minus at the same time because it's taken away from one thing to give it to another thing. So this is where mathematics crosses into a non-mathematical area, the area of semantics and language. And I've been trying to explain this to people for years, and I've developed these examples of it because I get a lot of blank looks from people like, what's he talking about? I don't understand. Gymnasiums, buying a loaf of bread, getting on an aeroplane. all over the place. What's he talking about? They're examples of the same basic principle. Okay, I mean, I'm in the autistic spectrum, perhaps obviously, and I'm nearly 70 years old, so there are things I sometimes need to get off my chest, and I need to explain to other people, and they generally don't get it. So, here's a video that says it, and probably a lot of people still won't get what the hell I'm babbling about. I'm a babbling idiot. Pay no attention. Goodbye.